Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and former Speaker Jayasuriya have agreed to work together on forming new parliament committees. Jayasuriya told Daily Mirror the Prime Minister discussed with him and they agreed to work together on the parliament committees. There had been reports and speculation earlier that the former Speaker would be brought into Parliament through the national list to be appointed as Prime Minister to replace Mahinda Rajapaksa. However, the speculation was dismissed with the appointment of Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. Sri Lanka needs approximately $500 million every month to finance consumption requirements and appears unable to present a coherent plan to sustain previous debt. Government debt is estimated $32,200 million. The next couple of months will be the most difficult ones of our lives, Ranil Wickremesinghe told the nation, fed up with long lines, skyrocketing inflation and daily protests. We must prepare ourselves to make some sacrifice and face the challenges of this period. We haven't the youth representatives or any other group suggested a name for the future Prime Minister and left Gunatillake to decide. No suggestions have been made by any parties, youth demonstrations or intelligentsia regarding any nominees to the premiership position. Sajid Premadasa refused unless certain conditions were fulfilled, and one was that Gunatillake must resign. The president had no other choice than to hand over the position to Ranil Wickremesinghe, which he accepted with the hope of saving the country from this present crisis. Gotabaya Rajapaksa had no other choice than to hand over the position to Ranil Wickremesinghe, which he accepted with the hope of saving the country from this present crisis. The public going through all the hardships without food, fuel, diesel or gas still brings out the past failures of Ranil Wickremesinghe, even though there is no suitable candidate to take over the challenges and the responsibilities of the Prime Minister. Inflation runs at 133% in March, 6 times more than the official rate by the government. Airlines have been asked to stop refueling to save fuel. The next 3 weeks will be difficult. Statement from Prime Minister. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasizes that the next 3 weeks will be a difficult time with fuel. Fuel and gas should be consumed as sparingly as possible in his speech in Parliament, he said. The Prime Minister is informing the public that travel should be limited as much as possible during this time. Therefore, the Prime Minister also urges the public to refrain from accumulating fuel and gas unnecessarily. The Prime Minister said that efforts are being made to distribute fuel and food without any difficulties after 3 difficult weeks, and discussions are being held with various parties. We have to face these difficult 3 weeks with patience, he said. The statement in Parliament is as follows, as reported in the New Wave. I hope you all understand the situation we and our country face. We need to find new ways as an alternative to traditional methods. If we are to elevate the country from this position, we must set aside our conventional political ideologies for a short period and make a concerted effort to rebuild the country. The people of the whole country should play a role in this effort. We all have a part to play for the country. Our primary focus is on economic stability, but we cannot recover from this alone by creating financial stability. We need to revive the economy of our country. This is not something that we can done in 2 or 3 days. This challenge cannot be done by miracles, not from slogans, not by magic or by emotions. Implementing intelligently throughout projects requires hard work and dedications. The country spends $500 million per month on fuel. It should be kept in mind that the current global crisis risks raising oil prices. Some estimate that global oil prices will rise by 40% by this year. In this context, introducing a coupon system for fuel cannot be ruled out. Somehow we have to find $3.3 million worth of energy for the next 6 months. It costs $40 million a month to import gas. We are currently using multilateral assistance, local currency and Indian loans to import gas. We will require $250 million over the next 6 months for gas. Negotiations are underway with various parties to ensure this happening. After these difficult 3 weeks, we are trying to ensure the shortage of fuel and gas will have ended. Let's face these difficult 3 weeks united and patiently. The Prime Minister made this statement while making a unique statement in Parliament today regarding the current situation in the country. The UN will make a worldwide public appeal for funds and has pledged $48 million for food, agriculture and health, says Ranil Wickremesinghe. Sri Lanka's Prime Minister says the United Nations has arranged a worldwide public appeal to help the island's nation's food, agriculture and health sectors face serious shortages amid its worst economic crisis in recent memory. In his speech to Parliament on Tuesday, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said the UN plans to provide $48 million in assistance over the 4 months period, but the projected funds barely scratch the surface. In his speech to Parliament on Tuesday, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said the UN plans to provide $48 million in assistance over the 4 months period, but the projected funds barely scratch the surface of the $6 billion the island nation needs to stay afloat over the next 6 months. I can't go as a failed president. Sri Lankan President Rajapaksa vows to finish term, won't run for re-election. This is a report produced by Bloomberg. Sri Lanka President Gotabaya Rajapaksa vowed to finish the remaining 2 years of his term despite months-long street protests calling for his ouster, but won't stand for re-election as he focuses on fixing the financial mess that tipped Sri Lanka into its worst ever economic crisis. I can't go as a failed president, Rajapaksa said on Monday in a wide-ranging interview at his official residence in Colombo, his first with a foreign media organization since the crisis unfolded. I have been given a mandate for 5 years. I will not contest again. The defiance comes in the face of slogans of Gotha Go Home, with protesters blaming Rajapaksa and his family for decisions that led to the severe shortages of everything from fuel to medicines, stoking inflation to 40% and forcing a historic debt default. Since mid-March, thousands of demonstrators have camped outside the president's seaside office, forcing him to retreat to his barricaded official residence about a kilometer away. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his new Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is now seeking about $4 billion in aid this year from the International Monetary Fund and countries including India and China. Sri Lanka's rupee has lost about 82% over the past year, and the central bank on Monday flagged the possibility of a further correction. The nation's debt is trading in the deep distress territory.
Do you reckon the IMF is going to step in this case, and will it step in time before the economy disintegrates?
It seems almost certain that it will step in. We are actually very close to an agreement between the government of Sri Lanka and the IMF, but the timescale is really important. We're still talking of weeks, 2 or 3 months maybe, and in the meantime, the government is in an acute crisis, as you said. The export revenue at the moment probably covers about half of the minimum import needs for basics like fuel and food and medicines. So there is an acute gap here that has to be filled somehow in the next few weeks.
What are your suggestions? How's Sri Lanka going to fill that gap? We're talking about an enormous task, aren't we?
We are. I mean, most official organizations take the very understandable view that they cannot release any new money to Sri Lanka until there is an agreement in place with the IMF. I understand that. So the government is currently living mainly on credits from the government of India. And we don't know how long the government of India is going to be willing to do that, or whether other governments in the region, including China, are going to step in with short-term assistance. So it's very much up in the air at the moment.
And it seems to put Sri Lanka, from what you're saying, in a precarious situation as far as global alliances go and regional tensions too.
Yes, I mean, Sri Lanka has been at the center of quite a lot of tugging between China, India, and the United States in particular. And an agreement with the IMF is actually going to depend on all those three countries and various others agreeing on the rescheduling of the money that Sri Lanka owes to them. So, this is a very precarious situation, but I hope that none of those three parties is going to be so irresponsible as to block an agreement with the IMF, because if there is no agreement with the IMF, then we have disaster.
Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian has spoken to reporters about Sri Lanka's debt crisis. This was stated at a media briefing held yesterday. Mr. Zhao Lijian said that the Chinese understands the difficulties and the challenges currently facing Sri Lanka and wants China to play a constructive role in Sri Lanka's sustainable economic and social development. He also mentioned the loans given by France to Sri Lanka. He said that China would assist in resolving the issue in consultation with relevant financial institutions and Sri Lanka. China is also willing to work with relevant countries and international financial institutions to ease Sri Lanka's debt burden. Mr. Zhao Lijian said China hoped Sri Lanka would work to protect the legitimate rights and the interests of foreign investments and financial partners, and the stability and the credibility of the country's investments and economic environment, as reported in the Newsweek LK. Hope you liked the video presentation on the socio-political situation in Sri Lanka today. Stay safe and goodbye for now.